Okay. You are back inside of an episode of Pop Culture POV. My name is Randomly RJ. David Yontef of Behind the Velvet Rope. He's got his mug merch going on and everything. David, how you doing? How has your week been? How has the pop culture world treated you this week?
And by the way, that wasn't a random pop. That wasn't a random pop. Like as you introduced me, I'm just gonna randomly take a quiet sip of coffee. There's a lot going on, right? It's been a busy week. I don't know. I feel like
Mhm.
now that it's the fall and the summer's really over, we just work a lot, right?
We work a lot, and then if you're involved in social media on any level, you're sort of expected to be interesting with your work. You're supposed to have social assets. You're supposed to have Halloween costumes and the parties and stuff like that. And I was talking to you a little bit before we started. We are not the younger crop of podcasters and YouTubers and stuff. And I feel, because I started radio when I was 21, and back then I could do all the things. So I venture to know some of the kids that are really winning, not the kids, but the 22-year-olds that are really doing well, you can't sustain it. So what I like about podcasting with you is, we're of the similar, mindset, but also that we take time to say, I can't do it all. There's you don't get a reward by being team no sleep. I got to tell you, team sleep is where I want to be.
Kind of, right? And like, look, there's only so much you can do. And if you really think about it, you're competing with yourself. You're not competing. That's like my best life advice for anyone. Like, don't look to your left, don't look to your right, look to yourself, right? Like, you should be competing with yourself. So if you can't get it all done, you know, you don't have to. You go to bed, you get enough done, I'm sure. That's how
Well,
I look at it.
the whole concept of doing independent content is you build it how you want to build it. So if you feel extra aggressive, go for it. If you feel like you need a little bit of a rest, you got to go for that too. But you're right; it's been a really weird and busy pop culture. Last couple of days. Of course, the BravoCon in New York City at the Jacob Javits Center that totally made stories and headlines and whatnot. So we'll talk a little bit about Bravo. There's one story I want to do too on Bros, just to kind of talk about how it did in the box office, where, why, and how. And then, of course, I wanted to ask you, David, your origins of your podcast and just how I actually do think you did pace yourself, because instead of going all through summer and working your butt off where you weren't really feeling good and enjoying the summer, you actually did something that I respect. Is you said, no, I'm going to Sag Harbor and I'm going to enjoy my experience. How was that detachment? Yet I think you were still working a little.
I mean, I am glad that you think that I detached and had a wonderful summer. Listen, don't let the I'm going to the Hamptons and Sag Harbor fool you. I was working from there. You know, I have a lot of shows that I record ahead of time. There's really everyone's like, oh my God, you do 5 shows a week. I'm like, I put out 5 shows a week. Some weeks we record 3, some weeks we record 12, like I was just telling you. So I was lucky. Look, it was a slow summer in the sense of like, there wasn't a lot of people that were promoting things, in my show being like mostly an interview based show of celebrities and like a lot of Bravo people. So it was slow, but I was able to catch up, but I was still working a lot. But I'm glad that you think that I kicked my feet up and had a great summer. I think that's a good thing. But I worked less than I'm working now. Let's put it that way.
I just think it's important as the people who are not in our 30s anymore or our late 20s to kind of like talk about it. Yes, nobody thinks it's an attractive quality to say how old you are on the podcast, but I say I'm 42 each and every day. I let these young bitches have it because, in my opinion, if that's the only way that we're all going to be able to age and grow within this industry. So that's just me. But I wasn't always that way. I used to always be the same, where I was like, oh, I don't really want to age because it's harder to get jobs. And it is. It is. I couldn't believe how easy my career was in my 20s. I didn't do nothing and I kept winning. Now I do everything and I can't always win. But this home of doing independent content has been really, really great. Seeing what you do on Behind the Velvet Rope has been so motivating and exciting to me. So kudos to you. And I think we'll have a good episode here.
I love it. And I do love, I mean, I used to be in charge of hiring. I have a whole past career. I used to be a lawyer, but I was in charge of hiring like a Martha Stewart and advertising agencies. We don't need to name any one particular company. So that's not a knock against Martha, but age discrimination in the workplace is so relevant. I mean, I used to have people say to me, we're not hiring that person. They're too old. Now, yes, that's illegal and all of that.
Yeah.
But, they would say it to me as the head of hiring. I mean, and so it's, it's a real thing. It's a
Yeah.
real thing. You would be like, this person's great. It's not up to you. It's up to the hiring manager. So it's not putting weight on it, but you would hear that all the time. So it's the real thing. But
Yeah.
that's why I love what we do because, it's ours. You're building something that, I have had many offers to go to networks and iHeart, and it's like those offers are always so shocking to me because I would have taken a lot of these offers like the first 6 months I was doing this when I had no idea what I was doing. I would probably have considered a lot of these offers in the first year when I had no idea. Now that
Mhm.
the machine is running and I know exactly what I'm doing and it's making money, what am I getting out of this now? I mean, I'm not trying to sound, but that's what I love. And it sounds so sexy when you get that call from some big parent and then you really dig and you're like, I don't know, I'm going to be giving up a lot of control. And I just know myself from, that's the thing, I guess, about being older. You know what works for you and what doesn't. And I'm just like, as great as this sounds, this will be a disaster within the first 6 months. Trust me.
It's the lifelong challenge where the big companies are usually late to the party. So they never offer you something as you're growing and you can grow together. They usually wait for you to already be a foregone conclusion. And then they're like, oh, I want in on it. Well, listen, if you want in on all of this, the price, what did Fat Joe say? Yesterday's price is not today's price. It's like,
Well, that's what I was going to say. Please do not misread this. I mean, I am available for purchase right now today.
but you just got to do it right, though. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
TV or something huge that I can't do on my own. When it's a podcast, and it's like, we're gonna, maybe get you some ads. I'm like, well, that train is, or like, you bring me a whole bunch of something I'm not doing or I can't do on my own.
Yeah.
Yes. Today's price,
Yeah.
not yesterday's
The
price.
point of this conversation was just that, like, we have the creative power to do what we want. And like I said, working in radio in 2001, I think it was, none of that existed. You had to, and I think it's a skill set that I still carry on. You had to know how to not only cut your teeth to become good at what you do, but you had to know how to network. You had to know how to, I don't want to say schmooze because I was never of the vein of kissing ass, which is maybe why my career is where it's at. But you had to have a little bit of, smoothness about the way you walked into a building, the way you showed your skill set. So this is exciting for me because I almost didn't do this, David. I almost didn't do like the YouTube stuff because I was like, "Are you kidding me? I've already been, on Fuse TV. I was, I got to host some shows there. I'd already done like little clips of reality. I've already done every radio station damn near imaginable. So I was like, I'm not going to do this. But I really find inspiration by some of the people that are in our peer group because it's made me jump back in. Anyways, enough of Ronnie because no one wants to talk about Ronnie. You know what we want to talk about? All the people that you've interviewed because you've interviewed everybody, some of my favorites, in fact. But let's jump over to Real Housewives, the franchise that I think is not even underrated anymore, the specific franchise that lots of people are talking about now, Real Housewives of Miami. I in particularly enjoyed when you interviewed the great Larsa Pippen. I think I've told you this before and I never let down. So I wanted to know what you thought of the new trailer of Real Housewives of Miami. This would be season 5.
I think it's going to be a great season, right? Nothing shocks me, right, about the trailer. We've heard things. I mean, obviously it's going to be, look, I feel like we got lucky 2 times in a row. First we had all this stuff with Alexia, which, okay, maybe she brought that to the forefront, but she did have this huge backstory, on her ex who, passed away and he was closeted. And I mean, we
Yeah.
really not have that when we left. So, I mean, in a way, I mean, she got a lot of flack. I mean, a lot of the Miami Housewives that came on my show, not even just Larsa, gave her flack of like, why are you bringing this up? And that's a whole thing of like, Leah Black said on my show, like, you added a dead man. Like, do we see issues with that? And I see both sides of it, but I get that, like, we as an audience didn't know. So we had to be filled in. This is a roundabout way of saying, like, this is one of these gifts now. Not that I wish harm on anyone. I mean, look what Lisa's going through. This ain't a storyline. Like, this ain't a, like, what am I going to talk about? This is real. So
Yeah.
I feel like I think it's interesting. Lisa, to me, I was most disappointed season 4 in Lisa. Like, just in terms of, like, I thought she'd make much more of a splash. And for me, she kind of fell short. So Whereas if last season was the season of Alexia, I think this season's going to be the season of Lisa. So I think it's going to be, as a viewer, look, we love change, right? We love
Yeah.
when the dynamics change. So I think it's going to be a good season again.
Lisa, if anything, that last season, like you say, she was sort of setting up the nuggets of that because there was the emotional cheating. So that wasn't really the thing yet. But now as we see what's happening, it's like, oh, it's going down. Let's take a look at the trailer real quick. We could add that. And let's see. Pull the audio up. Let's see what's going on.
I don't know if my marriage is gonna survive.
Is there anybody else?
It's as if they were starting from scratch to the point that you made. Woo! Nothing was redundant. We didn't have to hear, because I got so tired of Adriana. You just want to be like Kim Kardashian. You want to be with Kanye. Like, we didn't hear that again. We didn't hear a lot of Alexia's stuff. Didn't become repetitive. The new story was the son, who tends to get in trouble a lot, saying that the girls in his life, have a hard time with, Alexia as the mother. It was just such new stuff. Nicole, I guess, getting married. Gertie, what do you think about Gertie? She would be the one I'd be worried about. Like, is she trying too hard for the second season? But I say that with so much love.
I mean, look, I had her on my show. I thought she was very authentic on my show. And it was at the end of the first season, and she had a like, I hope I come back. I was like, you're going to come back. I mean, trust me. Let me tell you. And it's like, I can tell you from talking to her, I mean, this is on air, I'm not revealing anything. She really felt like we saw professional Gertie. You know what I mean? She felt like she had no storyline season one. No, I'm not saying I felt that way, or maybe you felt that way, or the viewer, but she felt that way. She felt her entire presence was planning the wedding. I'm a wedding planner. Here's my business. And she was like, listen, I hope they let me come back. And I'm like, that's very humble of you. She's like, I need to kind of show you guys like me. So I feel in that sense, she's probably not trying too hard. I just think maybe we didn't even really see her last season. Because really, what drama did she get into last season? It was all about her planning Alexia's wedding.
Even so, and I hate that narrative because I'm a big Melissa Gorga fan. You don't have a storyline. Like, some people are just fly and you want to watch them. The show itself, Real Housewives, is aspirational living or aspirational lifestyles. Sometimes you look at a Gertie and you're like, look at her. She's having a ball. Like, she's got the husband. Remember, she made the little confessional. She's like, what do you think, Andy? Like, no one's ever done that. She was really fun. And I'm not saying by any means by her getting in Alexia's face, that means she's changing or whatever. But I would say that was the only person I was a little worried about. But I'm into it. Yeah. Your thoughts on Lisa, because that intro of the trailer, I mean, to have to read it back or listen to it back, all of those confessionals, taglines rather, and it go the way it went, really hit hard, I thought.
I mean, I guess, well, look, I'm not shocked at all that they're getting a divorce for a couple of reasons. One, I thought their scenes, even last season, were so cringeworthy, just in terms of like, this isn't a good marriage. Mind you, from knowing all these people, I've heard things throughout the years. Well, look, who knows what's true, right? But, you heard that they, were swingers. I mean, these are things I heard. I have no idea if they're true. But you heard like that it was more that he wanted this and she was just desperately trying to. These are just things I heard, not necessarily even from the cast, but from the cast off the record. I mean, we don't have to say who said what. And from the cast past, I just heard stuff like that throughout the years. But regardless of that, watching it, I never got a sense that this was like a real couple in love, right? So I'm not shocked that we're here.
Yeah. Well, in any case, I think it's going to be compelling a view to watch. It's going to be very, very compelling to watch because Lisa is still a fun cast member. And you're right, we didn't see a lot of her last season. Still lovable, but now it's go time for her. As we wrap up Real Housewives of Miami, can I get your thoughts on Leah in her cameo, and then just a thought or two about the great Larsa? Because I tend to not be able to stop talking about the queen of the show. I say all the time, I love Larsa so much.
We'll keep saying it. Listen, from having Leah on my show and talking to her in the real life, look, am I thrilled to see her on the screen? Absolutely. Am I shocked knowing her, things she said on my podcast? these people all protest so much, right? And to
Mhm.
me, it's like, I don't think you got paid. Like Vicky Gunvalson didn't get paid for this scene with Tamara coming up and Shannon. I mean, you don't get paid for a cameo. Now look, do we know they could make special arrangements? I knew Vicky didn't get paid, and then it came out she didn't. I'm thinking Leah didn't get paid. I mean, I would say 99% likely, but I don't know that for a fact. But
Yeah.
I am thrilled to see her. I've had her on. I love Leah in the real world. She had some thoughts on this reboot when it came back, and they weren't overly pleasant, and just the fact that of where the direction of the show was going, and it wasn't really for her. So it's just one of those, like, never believe them, Ronnie. When they say,
They're
okay, let
always
me,
over it. Yeah.
they're like one phone call and it's like, there you are. So I'm not judging. I'm just like, maybe I'm judging a little bit. I'm okay with you being like dying to be there. Just admit it. Just admit you want to be part of it. That's all. There's nothing
It
wrong.
is nothing wrong with that. It's like, when each of them call each other a narcissist, it's like they're all on a TV show, doing a podcast. Like you're hello camera, hello microphone. There is a narcissist quality, or a quality that just says you want to shine. Nothing wrong with that, like you said. Well, I think she'll do good. It'll be a small cameo, and maybe if she does want to come back, she has a little more negotiating power, because I feel like she'll somehow make an impact. That's just Leah. Off.
One scene she made an impact. I think.
Yeah. Okay, and now my favorite. Oh, Larsa Pippen, which I have to remind you, David. Scene 1, episode 1. I am not a come to the party after her Miami experience, and then I didn't even care that she was a Kardashian friend. That had no burden on why I liked her. I'm scene 1, episode 1, Real Housewives of Miami when it aired. So I just love this girl. What do you think we're going to see? We didn't see a lot of her in the trailer, but she's always in the headlines, dating Michael Jordan's son. I don't know how true that is. Will we see that? Will we want to see that? What's your opinion?
I mean, I imagine this is at the beginning of the season. I do think that there is something about the Kardashians in the beginning of the season just to set it up about, and my sources tell me, like, Audriana and Larsa, there's no love lost. So I think just to start about why they are now not thrilled, I think it goes back to that you said this, and Adriana went on some podcast. We don't need to mention which ones that might be on the show, that might not. I'm not saying anything, but I did have her on my podcast. We'll just leave it at that. So I think that kind of is, but then I do, yes, we're going to move on from this. That's why I think this show is good from Larsa, because even me, I wanted to talk about the Kardashian when she was here last time, and I was told you are allowed one Kardashian question. That is it. It wisely, but we've moved on, right? So I think we're not going to see that anymore, other than the beginning. And yeah, I think this season, I don't know. I think Larsa is a big part of this season. I don't know. I think Michael Jordan's son, if that's true, came after they stopped filming.
Oh, gotcha. And that's a grown son, by the way. And also, it feels weird to hear that, because not the grown son part, but Michael Jordan's grown son, Larsa, are they, aren't they? Because in my perspective, I was like, go ahead, Larsa, do what you do. You're 40 something year old woman. You were married for 20 something years. Go off, do your thing. But I was shocked when I saw on Twitter how the straight men feel about this, because they take it so personal. They take it like, ooh, Michael Jordan got the best of Scotty. I'm like, the egotistical straight mind sometimes is like,
Right.
I'm like, it has nothing to, yeah.
I would never think of that.
Well, I saw it a little bit online, and I was like, go, yeah.
Wow. Interesting. That's interesting. You saw that.
Yeah, I was like, go Larsa, because that's my vibe. But then, yeah, a lot of the guys were like, oh, wow, that's the ultimate diss, and Scotty's going to be pissed. I was like, the ego of these men, where it's like about them. And I do, yeah, they probably had some, or they did have some issues or whatever, but it's just interesting. And she is just always interesting for me. So storyline, not storyline. When she's in a scene, she's compelling. I guess she had said recently that she's no longer doing OnlyFans because her father saw kind of what was going on, made a comment, and she lost her excitement to do so. So she's always going to give you something different. She just is. She's a very unique cast member, and seems like a really cool chick.
I'm a huge Larsa fan too. I mean, I think To me, she's like, it is what it is. To me, she's like a Candy Burris. Like every year, everyone's like, Candy's going to be fired. She doesn't bring anything to Housewives of Atlanta. I mean, she is the highest paid, but like, I think that Candy gets her job. Say, I don't think Candy needs to be the one that brings everything. Larsa to me, I'm not saying she's Candy, but she has this cachet about her. Fine. A lot of it is because of the Kardashians, but who cares? She has this cachet that her name brings some clout to this show. Do you know what I mean? Like outside of the Housewives world,
Yeah.
it's like I'm not saying she's better on the show than anyone. She's like a Martina Navratilova. Her and Larsa, they elevate something about this show to me like Candy Burris, whether they're the best housewife or not, right? So I think that's why she's great. She's great, right?
And I think she gets under the skin of some of the other cast members because they'll be like in their press and promo opportunities and like doing kind of, Bravo commercials or whatever. But that same weekend, like Larsa will be at like NBA All-Star weekend, or she'll be at like the Super Bowl. Like she's just always in the mix at the Grammys. Like Larsa's always top tier, whether the show's on air or not. And I think that kind of gets under their skin. But so far, so good. I like the trailer. I'm into it. I'm watching.
I'm into it. I think we're going to have like I think it's going to be good, which is not always the case when these shows return for a second or third season, even though this is fifth. You know what I mean? I think I just like the feel of Miami. It just feels different. I mean, I really think maybe it's because it's on Peacock. I mean, I really feel like maybe not that the standards are different, right? But I don't know. It feels different on Bravo. So there's something about it that feels right to me too.
It's so hard to tell because Miami is it more of a fun city? Because I got to tell you, and I was never a Real Housewives of Beverly Hills fan that much, so I don't have no love lost. That is just too cringy the way that season is going for a couple years now. So I always compare it to like, wait a minute, if Beverly Hills is the crown jewel, Miami's so much funner, but that's maybe a choice. They're choosing to go, one harsh story, which is of course Lisa, the breakup, but they could do the rumors too. They could do, there's always probably something going on Star Island that's, unmentionable. So they're choosing not to touch those really, interesting situations. So anyways, I'm gonna watch it. I like it. I'm so excited. David, I want to get your opinion on the revamp of Real Housewives of New York. Before we had talked on the podcast about who we thought should be there. We thought Olivia Palermo. I liked Cece Sabathia's wife, Amber Sabathia. We just talked about some choices. But they went with a whole new cast. Are you familiar with anyone? Jenna, of course, everyone knows. But what do you think of the new cast of Real Housewives of New York? Specifically that they're a little bit younger. I love a 45, a 55, and a 65-year-old housewife. These gals look pretty young. What are your thoughts?
I mean, look, I've been saying this forever. I said, not that it's all about me being right, but I said, look, where there's no legacy show for years. I mean, what is it now? A year and a half? And we haven't even started filming this. So I said, this is going to be announced first. We have nothing with legacy. So I said, this is definitely the direction that I knew they were going in. So I agree with you. I like 50s and 60s for Housewives. Wasn't that the whole point? That Andy gave a voice and a place for women that would otherwise not be on TV, put out to pasture, so to speak, which like Hollywood has changed a lot, but so especially not reality TV. So that was the whole point of it to me. So I like Housewives. I think, you're at a different place in your life in your 50s and 60s. I really like that. This doesn't shock me because that's what they're doing with everything. I mean, that's why New York didn't work because you had, and that's why people for Beverly Hills, they say, Crystal Kung is 39 and everyone else is in their 50s. It is, you don't realize it and then you do in certain scenes. And so it's strange dichotomy at times, but I knew this was going to happen. I don't like it. I wish they were 50s and 60s, but I'm not shocked. This is how the cast I expected them to look. It's very diverse. There was a rumor a few months ago and my friend Orfe was in the cast and I was like, no offense to her. I'm like, she's not right for this. Like, I love her. She's, and of course I called her and I was like, first of all, I have a real problem with you right now. Like, you're like one of my good friends. And like, this is all I do for a living. Like, I understand confidential, but I don't. And she was like, David, it is so far from the truth. And I'm like, of course it is. So this is what I expected. I know, I guess, listen, I've read a lot of comments. Have you read the comments? I mean, a lot of
Not
people, they're
too
not.
much. I've been kind of giving my own opinion first, but I'll hit the comments. What are they saying?
I mean, look, I think some people are like, let's bring it. I mean, a lot of people are just saying, I really think there is housewives fatigue. And it's like, why start something new if you're not already invested? Now, I think if it's, I mean, a lot of people said that about Salt Lake too, and they didn't watch until this happened with Jen Shaw. And now they all went back and watched. And so I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of
Ooh,
people are not.
I might be the opposite on Salt Lake. I'm so tired of it. It
It's
comes on, but Meredith, who was fantastic, turning into a complete caricature of herself. You know, maybe that's a harsh way to say it, but now she's selling merch where it's like half of New York. I love half of New York. It's just, it's really coming unhinged, and
like
I don't know.
it's off for me too. It just doesn't seem right. I don't believe that Whitney and Heather are fighting.
Mhm.
I don't even really. I believe Meredith and Lisa a little more, but not really. I think this is all, and I don't even think it's by the producers per se. I think they're just like, what are we gonna do? I think Whitney and Heather got together and said, "Cuz we got to stay on this for the rest of our lives. Let's just fight. Let's just
We don't have Mary. We have to do something. Okay, I'll give some positive comments to this.
yeah,
Even though I said I like 45, 55, 65, I like when they've lived, they've had story, things are great at 30. Not saying that this cast is all 30-year-olds. Although a lot of them are close to 35. And I really do like that there is not to make it a thing, but the first Puerto Rican to be on the show. So that's exciting to me. I just think when I look at this cast, I think, okay, great. Let's let it be led by Jenna. Jenna had that really great HBO show, and she comes from a different texture, a different cachet. So let it be Jenna and her friends, because that's the one thing they're trying to sell us on in terms of like Bravo viewers. Like, oh, but you don't, this is a group that knows each other versus like, Housewives for a long time have been just kind of casted. This is an actual group of friends. So to that, I say, I like the group. I like Jenna. I don't necessarily think this should have been the Real Housewives. And if it is the Real Housewives, how are they going to do it? Like, was Jenna going to sign up? I feel like she's a little subdued in a really great way. I like that about her. But is she going to go in there and have like messy scenes and like ruin her business? I think not. So I think if anything, they could have got this group of girls and done a spinoff show and started something new and fresh. I think that's what I like about it. So I would be watching, but this didn't need to be Real Housewives of New York. And the last thing about it, we've talked about this before, is it just, as a viewer, the network, you have to make a decision. This decision is a cop-out, and it will be good. We'll probably still get into it. We'll still watch it, but it's a cop-out. I feel so fulfilled that we still don't really have, as we've been hearing lately, Ebony's reaction to Ramona. I feel very unfulfilled in terms of like they just washed their hands of it, but yet we were all invested. I'd almost like to think like all the stuff we're hearing on all the podcasts. And if you're watching, I have a picture of David when he interviewed Ebony, but Ebony on her own podcast, she had a lot to say about what Ramona had to say on Carlos King's podcast. So I just feel like there's so much there, so much positivity that you could rework into the show. There's some learning lessons you could rework in the show, but evidently, if everyone's not really feeling each other, I guess it can't go. I would have rather seen bring these girls back. I want Dorinda back. Ramona could have stayed. Ebony could have led the show or been like a strong portion of the show and add a couple more. That's what I wanted. That way you keep the integrity of the age, the little older of a cast member. You let Ebony get her story told, because I feel like, wow, how challenging. She literally said in the tagline, I have to do double the work and get half the reward, or whatever the case was. And yet we're seeing it. We're literally seeing it. So that's what I would have preferred,
I would have. I'm okay with that. I mean, I have mixed feelings about this. I think here's the thing. I think if this wasn't Real Housewives of, well, first of all, I don't think they knew what to do with the other show, but if this wasn't Real Housewives, would anybody have watched? I mean, I thought Real Girlfriends in Paris, I interviewed 2 of them. Bravo
Mhm.
handed them to me. Did anyone watch that? I don't think so. Did anyone watch Love Match Atlanta with the Atlanta matchmakers? I feel people are not watching these new Bravo shows. And I'm not including Winter House and all these things that are hybrids. But Real Girl, remember when we used to get all new Bravo shows all the time?
Yeah.
And some weren't hits, but a lot of them were. We had Tabitha and Patty and Jonathan Anton and Rachel Zoe. We had hits. Southern Charm was new at one point. So was Summer House. Like, we haven't really had a hit. So, because I think all that other stuff, Real Girlfriends and all that, I think it's like
One and done. Yeah, unfortunately.
I
Yeah.
just think if this were somehow like what Gallery Girls Part 2, I don't
Mm.
think anyone would have watched this if it wasn't Housewives. Everyone says they're not going to watch, but I
You're
think
talking about the new cast?
yeah, I think like
Okay.
the point. I'm just saying like if they spun it some other way, I don't know. I agree. I've interviewed a lot of people I have coming up. One of my new questions that I work into every interview now, when someone's, in fashion, I just interviewed some fashion bigwigs or media. I'm like, do you know Jenna Lyons? And everybody is like, I don't what? What? How is this?
Mm.
How? Why? Not that they don't like her. They're just like, they said the same thing you said. Like, they don't think she's gonna go balls to the wall.
Yeah.
And she was
Which
like,
also credibility to her if she had that type of negotiation. And in fact, that's the one and only intriguing thing about the show. If I mean, I will watch is that maybe it's going a different direction. Have we got tired? And I don't think we have, but have we got a bit tired of Sonia being a woman of a certain age and being silly, kooky every episode? It got a little redundant, even though we like it, it got redundant. So here I'm looking like, oh, are we going to get a series where we see one thing I like, especially Housewives of New York, having lived in New York for about 7 years, like we have to get New York City. We have to get that charm. So if you have a group of women that happen to all be friends with Jenna on some level, and they're all one's in fashion and one's, a wife of a doctor, and we get a little bit of that New York City life, I can get with that. But I definitely wish it was a different show. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
I get it. And the question is like, I know, like, I've heard the most of like Lizzie Savetsky, like Lily Savetsky. Like, my whole question is like, are these truly, truly, truly Jenna's friends? Like, do we really know that? I don't know if all
Yeah.
of them are. I guess we're going to see. But I do agree. They may not all be as big as Jenna, but they all have like businesses and they're influencers and they have big social following. So I think maybe when everyone's crying toxicity and, we don't want this and we don't want that, this might be a lighter, like you rip the bow off my cake, like Heather Dubrow. Like maybe to your point, like this is what we want. Although Beverly Hills just had, it's the highest rated at this point, and that was a bloodbath between Lisa.
Gosh.
That was so low. So
I was not into Beverly Hills at all. If this has a little bit of that, it can't have a Miami feel because it's not Miami. But if it has that fun, these gals who are 35 years old, some married, some not, or whatever the case, in New York City living it up, that's a show to watch. They could have called it A Second Coming of Blood, Sweat, and Hills. I don't care. But Jenna, who's so fantastic, in the lead position, maybe they do have a role for her where she's like the narrator and she's kind of like at bay where she doesn't have to really get in the mess, and some of the other girls get in the mess. But it'll be interesting. I guess I wonder if both shows are on air at the same time. Are you going to watch The Legacy or this one?
And I think they're not going to be. I don't know. In my mind, I still put Legacy on Peacock. That's just me. It may not, but I really think it's not going to be simultaneous. I think it's going to be after this. That's my honest opinion. And yeah, that's, so we'll see. I do agree if it's New York, the way Miami shows Miami, it's going to be great. I still think that, Olivia would have been the perfect person. I'm going to stand by that.
Yes.
Look, I don't really know if Olivia would do it. Olivia's kind of not, in her
The quality people are a little higher astute, so they don't really touch this anymore. So,
the bottom line is, Bethany even said this, and we don't need Bethany to say this, but like the bottom line is, and like I assume Jenna knows this, it's like I'm always shocked when I speak to these women like a year in. It's like, you don't, like, everyone's like Kris Kardashian. Do you understand the reason why Kris Kardashian will never do Beverly Hills Housewives, despite the fact that she doesn't need the money? The Kardashians control every word that's seen on their show. They controlled every word on E. They control everything in every interview. And listen, I mean, could you imagine being that popular? I mean, they are the pinnacle of what you want to be when you're in the media. You have no control. So I don't know if Jenna's going to be like shocked when this comes out, like, girl, what did you expect? That's Housewives. So I feel even with the best intentions, it's not going to go your way, right? Not everything, maybe not. Look at Kathy Hilton.
Because once those producers get in, the whatever was discussed before, I mean, there's only so much negotiations could cover. The show is, I sometimes, going back to Leah Black of Miami, I sometimes feel like Leah Black doesn't really want to be a full-timer just because, the show now is too in the rumor sphere and what that could do to people's real lives. And you have to weigh the options, you have to weigh the options. I think, honestly, I mean, Marlo used to say she loved being a part-timer because you get the best of both worlds. You get to be on the show, but you don't have to get in the mess. But it'll be interesting. And I really do want to see this group. And I want to see New York, and that was a real unfortunate thing that on the 13th season of New York, we didn't get anything because it was a pandemic. So I really think it was all done incorrectly, hammering on New York as being this horrible season. They could have done a reunion. They could have done whoever wanted to participate in the reunion. They could have done a separate reunion. And we should have been having, this should have been season 15 by now. But I guess we shall see. Do you have any comments real quickly? You've interviewed Ebony. I'm not sure if you've interviewed Ramona. Do you have any comments on Ramona sort of blaming what went on in terms of it being Ebony's fault? And then Ebony with a very good clapback. What are your thoughts on everything that's going on in the podcast world with the two of their opinions?
Well, listen, I am a lawyer just like Ebony. And if you come at a lawyer, when Ebony, this is why I love Ebony. Because like when she's my mind thinks the same way. You were trained for 3 years to speak. So when she's like, well, listen, here are two specific examples where Ramona has been brought to HR, where things have been brought up and the show went on. So bringing something up obviously doesn't stop the future of the show, because here are two specific examples where the show went on just fine. So for Ramona to say that Ebony brought this thing up and then the whole thing shut down, and that's why like now everybody around, I mean, Ramona knows what she's doing.
That's a big blame. Yeah, she's trying to get her own buzz off that interview.
For Ebony, which I mean, they already did. I mean, every time I interview Ebony, they're like, Leah and Ebony rule New York. Like that's, I mean, we're already over that narrative. So, I mean, to make a specific statement, I mean, I think Ebony's clapback was great. And it's not, I mean, Ebony doesn't fight Housewives. Ebony fights legal. She's been in the media before Housewives. So she's like, here are two specific examples where something was brought up that you use certain words or said whatever, and these are racial allegations against you, and the show went on. So you can't say that I brought it up and the whole thing shut down, because we have precedent that this happened twice before. I thought that was brilliant. I think that's like, you've just won your case, Ebony's here, and that's not just because Ramona is a horrible person in the real world and Ebony is wonderful. I'm not saying that. I just think Ramona is just, I mean, she's a mess. So
maybe she's just grabbing onto whatever she can. She waited to give that polarizing interview to Carlos King. You notice she hasn't said that on another podcast or whatever. She did that intentionally because she knew it would fly and create a little bit of a storm here.
And Carlos know each other and they're close. It's a little extra fuck you, I think, to her. And look, I mean, I didn't believe Ramona wasn't going to be on Legacy. I said maybe not, because I think once there's an HR issue, it's like, if we're not going forward with Ebony, I personally don't think, this isn't like I know anything and I've talked to Ebony. I just think if you can't have one person on your network, I don't think you can have the other. Like, I think if Ramona, I've said this a million times on my podcast, if Ramona, because all the rumors, Ramona's not going to be part of Legacy. If she's not going to be part of Legacy, to me, I think that has nothing to do with the fans or Bravo saying we will not tolerate certain behavior. I don't think they care. I think it's like, we have an HR issue, so we actually can't touch this human being ever again. I think short of that, you could cry racist Ramona all day. They would have had her. That's my honest opinion.
I kind of feel like that because, she went, well, I mean, it was already recorded, but she did Ultimate Girls Trip, and they, I don't want to say protected her, but they sort of had to kind of protect her, because what are you going to do? Like if they were to take her off well, they couldn't take her off. She was on the show and she was doing problematic behavior with Kenya even then. So it's just a whole thing. I don't know. I just feel really, really bad for Ebony not getting her full experience, but it seems like she's got a lot of other work coming, and hopefully they find a series. Like you said, Bravo's launching a lot of different series. Hopefully they find something that like puts her in the leadership role and it's something new, a fresh idea, because I don't think Bravo should have seen the last of Ebony. Do you have thoughts on the people who are so also feel like Ramona and also blame Ebony? Do you have thoughts on those types of people?
I mean, I don't even understand it. It's like, are you saying Leah and Ebony ruined the show just because you didn't like that season? I mean, there's a lot of seasons. We didn't like season 6 of New Jersey with Amber and the twins, and it went on. Right? Like,
Right.
so I just think, I think there's this hate watching. I mean, look, I'm no fan of Leah's. I mean, I've made that pretty clear before. I don't know how you lump these two people together, but people always do. But yeah, I mean, I just think that's really like pure angry that New York is no longer on the air and you need somebody to blame. So these are the two people that you're blaming.
Yeah, blaming anyone for season 13 seems crazy because you can't say, oh, Ebony had an agenda. I'm sorry, Ebony just knows what she's doing and has been in this business, and check the record. She worked at Revolt, she worked at Fox News, like she's worked everywhere and done everything. And as a lawyer, like you say, you're mistaken that maybe she had an agenda just because you're not as swift as she is. She's
way. I mean, not to cut you off. It's actually the exact opposite. If Ebony had well, I see what you're saying, but if Ebony had an agenda to be a fame whore and hold on to the Housewives train, she would have. I mean, that is what happened. I mean, she said it on my off air. I mean, they said, this is how you play the game, and shh, and they tried. That's what they do. I mean, off air, not just Luann and Ramona and so everyone of every franchise. I mean, they don't really help you, but they tried to guide her, like shh. And Emily's like, I will not silence what I want to talk about. This is what I talk about in the real world. This is a reality show. So if Ebony really wanted to play the game, she would have said, girl, curb it all. Keep all this, Black excellence to yourself, because this isn't what. And she would have said whatever to play the game. It's really that she didn't play the game. She's like, this is me. I will not be silenced by a bitch. This is who I am. And
right.
I'm talking about this at dinner if there were no cameras. So it's actually an authentic version of herself, that she wasn't willing to compromise who she was as a human being to stay on a reality show. That's like, isn't that what everyone cries for? Isn't that what we all, where's your authentic self? But that's what they tried to do. They tried to guide her about how Housewives works. And she was just kind of like, in all, meaning Leah too. I mean, Leah's the biggest flip-flopper because she went down that, but she was just like, I mean, it's not that I don't know how Housewives work. It's that I don't care. Like this agenda, this who I am as a person is bigger than a TV show. So that to me is like, why? I mean, that's like, bravo. I don't know. Why don't
agree?
That? Why don't people understand that?
I always get discouraged when I see the other side of the viewpoint, but you and I, no, we're team Ebony. Seems like she's gonna land elsewhere or maybe another network. I think she was doing something with OWN maybe, but you still want your second chance. You want your second season, whatever that is. Maybe you have to wait a year or two. Bravo, get it together. Andy, get it together, because I would like to see more from her. That's all I'm saying. Moving along, what are your thoughts? Because I really don't like when Housewives goes to this level. But Real Housewives of New Jersey, I'll call it, on display. Jennifer throwing something at the Gorgas. What is your thoughts on, that's not even for the show. And I was never a big Teresa fan. The flipping the table didn't do much for me. But I've just always been a Melissa fan. And I just don't like this Jen. I guess that's the period. That's the sentence. I don't really enjoy her on the show. And, it's one thing when they get into, I think it was last season, they sort of got in each other's face, but now you're throwing things. Sure, it didn't hurt nobody, but it's the general personality. How do you feel about all that?
I mean, look, I think Melissa said it best on her podcast afterwards. Like, right, you're not on the show now. This is a fan convention for fans that, you know, they're not, of course, they're there for that. They would have sat there and pulled up a chair for all night, but like, it's really to celebrate fans. Now, mind you, these fans paid $1 gazillion and Bravo's making $1 gazillion and all the housewives are making a ton of money. But, you know, it's right. Like, know your behavior. Look, we all snap and do something. I believe that, you know, and look, there's so much to say about this. I believe, and I've also heard a rumor. I heard a rumor, a pretty reliable source
I heard a rumor.
Right. I heard a rumor. Bananarama, that Jennifer was sent home, that she wasn't at Watch What Happens the last night, but I was heard they knocked on her door and said, you have to leave. And she went ballistic. So I believe a couple of things. I believe, because
this is good.
Right. And I mean, it's from a pretty reliable source. I believe that Jennifer was sorry once she did it, not towards Melissa, but I think she knew after she did it, like, wait a second, this could have ramifications for me. Now, again, I heard a rumor. He knocked on her door and said, you know, you're not going to Watch What Happens. You have to leave. And I mean, I don't know if it was 5 security people. I don't know who showed up. And then, I mean, as soon as I saw her do it, there was all this damage control of like, look at the angle and this and the.
Oh my goodness. I get so tired of that. Like, she had a friend who did a god awful TikTok, and like, you got to have also, I think this is what you're going to say. You have to think about when 2 cast members get into it, who are the cast members? And one, like, it rolls off their shoulders. Maybe they're mad, but, you know, Melissa, it rolls off their shoulders. Maybe she'll take it to a podcast. That's it. But the other ones, and this happens in Potomac a lot too. I don't always agree with some of the Potomac gals who go right to Twitter and re-narrate a story. I'm always like, I mean, you're fooling a lot of people, but you're not fooling Ronnie. No.
And it's strange to me, right? So I think Jennifer, look, I'm just wondering, like, I mean, Andy made a statement that he thinks it's disgusting. Like, I think, and a lot of people, you know, a lot of people are actually on Jennifer's side, the majority of viewers.
Not happy about that.
I mean, look, I used to be friends with her in the real world. So I'm going to take my own opinion as a human. I think she's a vile human being. You know, do I think she's given us entertainment? Sure. But I think that no matter what, I know everyone's saying you don't speak to women that way. I just think at the end of the day, with security and Andy and the bigger Bravo statement, I don't care if this has nothing to do with me not liking her as a person. I just think that when she threw that, the minute it happened, I think she said, oh shit. Like, I think no matter what, unless there's footage of Joe Gorga or some guy like grabbing her physically, I think when you throw something, I don't care if it was like a 4th full of water and it was just water, I think you are still in the wrong. And I wouldn't be shocked. No one has said this to me. Is Jennifer going to be allowed at Watch What Happens? Because Diana wasn't at Watch What Happens all season. It's nothing to do with the bots. It's very strange.
Yeah.
And Jen Shah's not going to Watch What Happens at all.
No.
So Andy doesn't even like Jennifer Aiden, but I think she's now starting to be like worried. You know, when you do something and no one calls you and no one says anything and you sit with it, it's just like when you commit a crime, right? I mean, I haven't committed a crime, but you know, like a Jen Shah or like a Tom Girardi, like when you're not found, you have good days and you think you're over it, and then you come. So I think, this is my opinion, Jennifer is now spiraling out of control. I heard from someone she is, but I think it's like, oh my God, I wouldn't be shocked if she couldn't go to Watch What Happens. This had bigger implications of like, you did this at a fan event. I don't think she'll be invited to BravoCon next year, really. And maybe I'm making a big deal out of it and it will pass, but I still think whether you're on her side or the Gorga side, I think Bravo from a corporate point of view is you threw something and now you're wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I guess to some degree it's a tiny bit hypocritical, because if that would have been on the show, it would have been, I guess, okay. But there is a certain, like, this is the job. This is the job. You get into mess. Definitely don't put your hands on nobody, but like, that's the job. But yeah, at a fan event, it does cross the line. And so however she TikToks her way out of it, I don't know. And me, I'm just such a Melissa Gorga fan, but I'll take the Jen side for a second. With Jen, maybe she did good her first couple seasons. Maybe she found her thing. Oh, get right under Teresa. That's going to work. Jump into the Melissa BS and let me just keep hammering that. But there is a time where some of these housewives, these cast members, they let it get too away from them. And that's, I think, what we're seeing. I just hated it. I hope there could be like a Jen apology or something to keep this because it's so uncomfortable. You know, at the BravoCon, she's like, oh, they're clinging on to dear life. It's like Melissa's not wasting her time talking about Jen, but Jen just keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going, keeps on going. Then they have the moment in the elevator, and then it's like, oh, I'm now the one who they're against. Like, you can't talk that much, Jen, and then expect no reaction.
And right. And like the thing is, look, the best housewives, like Giselle does this really well.
We love Giselle, yeah.
But she does, she like yes, you could have thrown that drink on air. Yes, that's hypocritical, but you could have. You're not being paid more to do the social media. So to come here, like most housewives, if you really got it together, you're like, this is a money maker. I'm in the market selling my shirts and selling this, and I'm on the stage. And yeah, I'm giving shade to someone sitting next to me, but it's light shade, right? It's light shade. You don't, right? So I think Jennifer doesn't understand that. And I do think, yes, eventually along the journey, certain housewives start to lose it. And that's when they lose themselves and they believe the hype. And then that's when it's the beginning of the end. And also when they think it's not going to happen to me. Wait, Melissa's slipping. Teresa doesn't speak to her. I'm Teresa's number one. I'm going to be on the show. Melissa's going to be gone. When you start making a narrative that heavily it's like, it's even at like an inch, you get too cocky and you really believe it. And that's, we've seen it with everyone. Lisa Rinna might be able to save herself. I think she's going to come back, but
I do too.
Perfect example of someone that has gotten, like, I just think so. I think Jen doesn't realize, like, the point of BravoCon is not to be Jennifer on the Housewives. Like, this is a business person and entertain the fans. And yes, give some shade on the stage, and sure, that's expected, but not to this level. And I really think just it's a bunch of people that, like, I'm sure Melissa is sorry she said that, but it's people are coming out on Jen's side about, like, you know, I mean, look, there's a lot of people turning on the Gorgas now, but
well, they've always done that, and I have always said, shut up. I am Melissa Gorga Hive all day. She's the J-Lo of Housewives. She was on display in the final, in the Kenya, who was it? Kenya, Sheena, and Candace. She was the final performance at Watch What Happens Live. She's a star. If Melissa needs to leave the show for a year or two, that's fine too. I'm just always going to be team Melissa Gorga. It just is what it is.
And not for nothing, if it were me, like, you know, no one's going to like me saying this, but I, like, you know, this whole thing with Ebony and this investigation, like, I have no problem with that. Like, people can say that like, to me, it's like, when it's a real, maybe this is because I'm a lawyer, when it's either a real world thing, like the Ebony Ramona thing, or you're my enemy. So, like, if I were Melissa, this is just me, I'm sure she's doing this, I would now be trying to take this as far as I could up the ladder to get and kicked off the show, banned from Watch What Happens. I, like, if she's not doing all that, whether your team this or that, just as a, like, it's almost like you have an opening, like someone threw something at you. So now I would be like, I want to file a form. This is just me. I want to file a form of complaint and this and that. Let's pull the video footage. I think no matter what Joe Gorga said, you can say that's inappropriate to speak to women that way or whatever. But unless there was physical touch, I think she's in the wrong. And if I were Melissa, I would be taking this up the ladder of, like, something was thrown at me. So
yeah,
file a form.
I value your conversation, and in regards of, you said you at one time were closer to Jen, but you just give it up. You give it up exactly what needs to be said. Best case scenario. Best case scenario, Jen learns from the experience and maybe could start, you know, saying, wow, I got a little out of sorts, and maybe tries to mend the Melissa relationship. I even think that would be good TV on another season. You know what I mean? Like, it right now is just two the same. It's like Teresa, and there goes Jen right up her butt. It's like, we already know what we're going to see. So even that Jen keeps carrying that storyline season after season to, like, just go against Melissa for whatever. Melissa could sneeze and it's a problem for Jen. This might be a good change for the show's sake too, you know, but this is what happens. They probably had a really good season. Melissa may have not had a good season, and the wedding. So yeah, Jen might be like, oh yeah, I'm the number one. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, we're not there yet because everyone's doubling down. Jen is making statements and showing videos on her Instagram. Melissa's talk. So I mean, neither person is backing away from it.
Yeah. I was gonna ask, what do you think of the love bubble that is Louis and Teresa, but I guess we'll see it on the show.
I mean,
Le-
that I think that this is a match made in heaven. I think it's going to last. I think that Louis is, I still get that Dirty John vibes from him. And the goal of that is to, if you look at how it works, the goal is to alienate the person from everyone around them. He'll never alienate her from the daughters. So short of that, you did exactly what, yes, there's been issues between Melissa and Joan and Teresa forever, but it's real now. And Louis is like, when you're finally in, you speak out. He is speaking out. I am so happy. And the way they've treated my wife, Google it. He's making statements past decade. And but I think that he is a narcissist and I know the other women that dated him were married. So, I mean, they're like, screw you. Teresa, I mean, if you're a narcissist and you have someone looking up at you that this is perfect. She puts him on such a pedestal. You can have all the money in the world. You can't buy real fame. I think he wanted fame. She gives him that.
Oh, yeah.
He gives her a family. She never, Kim says this every week on my Patreon, Kim T. She was over them years ago. She needed them. She doesn't need Melissa and Joe anymore. So I actually really think, call it whatever you want, dysfunctional, but they're both in love. I think this is going to last forever.
Wow. They'll be like Heidi and Spencer, where it's them against the show. Maybe they'll get a spinoff. Who knows?
They're the perfect match of what each of them needs in the world. Yep.
I like that analysis. David, I wanted to ask you about Bros at the box office. So this was the very first gay rom-com. Of course, there's been other movies, but not in terms of a rom-com, and it didn't do so well. But I feel like I don't want to narrate it as such because it still was a really great movie. I actually watched it twice in the theater, but I wanted to get your opinion on how this happened. Was it the marketing, or was it the story wasn't good enough, or was a little bit of truth to what Billy said, that there was parts of the country where, people are still not going to go watch anything to do with two gay men, falling in love. He said it differently than that. People really jumped down his neck about that. What's your overall thoughts on Bros at the box office? Because I feel like it wasn't a failure. Sure, maybe the numbers, but watching it, it was nice. I liked it.
Yeah, and I didn't see his exact statement at all, but I agree with all of the above. Like, I have had a bunch of, I just had Colton Haynes on my podcast. I have Mario Cantone coming up. So this movie came up with both of them. And just as far as where do you think we are? Right. Like Mario Cantone from Sex and the City and just like that, his argument was, don't say it's a failure. It was made. Like a huge accomplishment. And I'm like, all right, I think that's what you were just kind of saying. Right. It didn't do well at the box office. Colton took a totally different approach of because Colton was in American Horror Story. We can talk about Ryan Murphy and, Pose and, the largest trans cast and all of this. He's like, where is the Brad Pitt, George Clooney, Julia Roberts, where you're making, $25 million and opening a Hollywood blockbuster as a straight person and you're gay in the real world. True. So, I agree with Billy. I agree. I think there's a part of the country that just won't go see it, which if you think about it, I'm trying to think, I can think of an example or two, but I'm not even going to quote them because then everyone's going to come for me. But if you think of other movies out there that are specific to a specific demographic or type, we all go see them. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't know.
Well, I think Billy, even when he was doing the press tour and he was really working hard on that press tour, he was saying, sure, I watched Brokeback Mountain once because, it's a story within his community, our community, but I've watched, every Meg Ryan rom-com ever, but it wasn't for us, but we still gravitated towards it. I also feel like I'm much more of a rom-com fan when it comes to like My Best Friend's Wedding, or even like a Harry Met Sally. The Judd Apatow style is it almost feels very straight, straight man-ish. So maybe there was a little bit of that. Like watching it the second time, I liked it more. The first time I watched it, it felt like it was, I was just looking at the cast a little bit too much and kind of seeing who's on the screen or not. But the second time I was like, oh yeah, this is cute, this is lovable. Of course, the Provincetown scene was absolutely fantastic. The monologue that he had, or the conversation that he had, was great. So there was a lot to it, and I just feel like the way people react always tells the real story. So if he said, something along the lines of, there's certain parts of the country that are still homophobic, I feel like if it wasn't true, people wouldn't have reacted so negative. Sometimes they need that one comment to just, they don't want to say anything to begin with, but you just got to slip once. And I'm not saying Billy slipped, but you got to slip just once. And then they're like, well, no, it's because this, and I didn't like the content. And like, sometimes the reaction was so vile on the internet. It was like, that's kind of what he was saying, that y'all don't fuck with us. Really.
Exactly. So I thought I agreed with him. I agree with him. I mean, yeah, like, I don't know, yeah, I guess I could see straight men on a date with a woman who wants to watch this and they go, but I mean, I guess if you think about it, I could see people saying, I'm not seeing that, which is alarming, but I agree with him. I do.
Yeah, and the marketing was a little tough because it felt like it was aimed towards like a straight audience in a way. Like, hey, it's just like another Judd Apatow movie, but it is different. Like Billy was even saying in interviews, love is love, but no, it's not. We're trying to be similar, but like, the different elements of being in a heterosexual relationship is different than being in a gay relationship, and I just thought it was done well. And I like that you said that Mario Cantone stated that it's not a failure. That's right. I don't even like to word it like did bad at the box office. I'm more just saying, unfortunately, it didn't bring in tons, at the box office, because now we don't look at a season 2 episode, second movie. We don't get to see that now.
I think I did say something like, it wasn't a hit or something at the box office. And yes, he quickly corrected me of like, I don't like that narrative. I mean, he was very nice about it. I mean,
yeah,
that comes out this Wednesday, but he was, and then, yes. And then Colton had the opposite statement.
Oh, but what does he know? Just kidding.
Just of like, I mean, it wasn't even about bros, just about like, as like, we have a long way to come in Hollywood, because where is the person that's opening the movie? That's like, where is the Brad Pitt? That's
why isn't Matt Bomer playing like Superman, or what was it? The great, what was the 50 Shades of Grey? Like, where it's just like he's still playing that straight character. Cheyenne Jackson on a sitcom though does play a straight man, which I thought was pretty cool, but that's still not, it's in the sitcom-y fun stages, Yeah,
it's like Mayim Bialik and it's Fox, and it's not like, like, no offense to Cheyenne Jackson, but he doesn't have George Clooney or Julia Roberts or Brad Pitt money. Like, that's what he's saying. Like, where is that mega star? Where is that Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman man that opens a movie and is like, I am gay, but here I'm playing the love interest. It doesn't.
May I say, side note, I love Call Me Kat. I think it is the cutest sitcom ever. I'm obsessed with Mayim Bialik. Leslie Jordan's on that. Kyla Pratt's on that. It's
hurts. Like, hello.
So good. So good.
It's one of those shows that just started. And when I had Cheyenne Jackson on my show, he was like, when it came to this, he was like, I'm not just saying this. This is probably like the best job of my whole career. I can't tell you how fun this is. It's a cute little show.
Yeah, I think it was from the UK first. It was called Miranda. And now it's here on its third season. It was one of those shows when I watched it at the beginning, I said, oh God, I like this. Oh no, don't say that, Ronnie. Because sometimes when I like something, it doesn't come back. And it's had a third season. And I just think what a great vehicle for Mayim Bialik. I mean, even her podcast is really good. She's just such a unique actress. And she's, had this huge career, going back to Beaches, even as a child. I just like it so much. That's a great side note. Two last things real quick. What are your thoughts on Andy Cohen saying Dorinda Medley is off pause? Now, she could be off pause, but where's she going?
I mean, look, I think she was always going to be, if there ever is a legacy show, which I don't even know if there ever is going to be, but I think that she is 99.99999% likely to be part of the legacy show. Yeah, she's off pause and that's it. She was on Girls Trip, and sure, a year and a half from now, or a year, maybe she'll be part of Legacy. I think she will if there's a legacy show. So I didn't think that was such a shocking statement either. It's
Yeah.
just me.
I was against Twitter because Twitter usually is such a dominant opinion, which is weird, by the way. But everyone didn't really love Dorinda on Ultimate Girls Trip 2. I actually did. I actually didn't have a problem with her. She did one or two things that were a little crossing the line, but generally speaking, I thought she was fantastic. What did you think of it?
I thought she was pretty good. She gave, I'm trying to think I think that because I did a whole show on this, I think I ranked Phaedra my MVP of Girls Trip 2, just in terms of wow. But Dorinda was way up there for me. She really was.
Yeah.
I think that the two that just kind of didn't really do it for me, like Vicky didn't really do it for me. She kind of stuck out. And I didn't think I thought Jill behaved herself. I didn't think Jill caused a lot of trouble at all. So I think Dorinda was kind of one of the main players of the whole show. Yeah.
I think I just love Jill on the screen, but you're right. Now thinking about it, she didn't really push that hard, but she still was a lovable watch. But she didn't
think, I mean, to cut you off, I think that Jill, this is my own analysis. I think that Jill has learned some lessons. I don't think that outing Tamara's whole thing, I think that was a minute of a setback for her. Not that she's going to be punished, but I think Jill, this is my opinion. She recorded Andy. She had this whole thing with Bethany and she was off the show. And unlike these other people, like my friend Catherine Edwards from Beverly Hills and people that really, Alex McCord, who's moved to Australia, people that just go on with their lives, that hasn't been Jill. There's no shade. She wants to get back on the show. And I think that Jill learned something over all these years of being put on her own pause. And when Legacy opened that door, and now there's a talk, and then when the Girls Trip opened the door, and now there's a talk of Legacy, which look, there's no Legacy show happening without Jill Zarin. Let's just
agree.
I think Jill's just shut the hell up, Jill, and behave yourself, because the goal is this Legacy, which maybe if that goes on,
couple seasons. Yeah.
I think imagine wanting something, Ronnie, for 10 years. And now it actually something that you would never going to get back. We're dangling this in front of you. And it's not even dangling. It's 90% likely. And all you have to do is shut your mouth and keep your head down and just vanish. I think Jill, as everyone else went in with their own agenda, I think Jill went in of let me do the job, but don't act crazy, Jill. I really do. I really think she had this conversation with her. Don't start tweeting at Andy and Bethany, and don't just lay low. I really do, because
to rewrite her reputation even. Yeah. I think that's exactly how she played it.
I'm not knocking that, right?
Yeah, and I do think she would be fantastic on Legacy. And if they lead it with the whole Dorinda versus Jill, I'm still into that too. I don't like a redundant storyline, I said, but I don't mind this because I feel like there's more to go. And both of them are very much there to play. Dorinda's there to play. Dorinda's the same thing. She didn't necessarily go on with her life either. She, it hasn't been as long, but she's always wanted to kind of come back. I don't know that I think the Ultimate Girls Trip 3 is going to be that great. It's Heather, Whitney, Giselle, Alexia from Miami, Candace from Potomac, Portia last minute, I believe, Leah, and Marisol. I'm just not looking forward to this one, even based on the trailer.
Yeah, I would probably be there with you. I think it's also an interesting mix when you have the first one of people on the show, the second one of people gone. Now we have some people there and some people not there. I think that everyone who's not there uses it as their own audition. Just like what I said with Jill, and hey, it worked. We have Taylor Armstrong going back to the OC, so it works. I just think it's weird when you have people Leah that have nothing to lose because they're voted off the island, and Portia. I mean, although Portia, I'm sure if it all worked out, is welcome back in Atlanta. It's weird. I'm not. I don't feel it.
As a Potomac fan, it makes me feel like, well, I have to watch Potomac to see what goes on between Candace and Giselle, but now I got to go watch Ultimate Girls Trip because they're both going to come. They're both going to come back the next season, and we're going to have stuff that we didn't see on Ultimate Girls Trip 3 that we were supposed to see. So I'm not looking forward to it as much. It may be good, but I liked a lot. I love the cast. I love Melissa, Kenya, even Cynthia. But 2 was really, really good. I liked it a lot. 3, I don't know. Wrapping out David Yontef of Behind the Velvet Rope, I just need to get your opinion on what's going on with Bethany. What is her position with TikTok? I know in your podcast, you've sort of talked about this. Some of what she says has to be 100% right, but a lot of the way she's carrying it out might be 100% wrong. Give me the story on this, and what are your thoughts?
I mean, look, the one statement when she's on Shark Tank with Mr. One, when she's like, business is personal. I'm like, I don't know if I can get on board with that one. I don't know. I mean, look, she's not at the Lisa Rinna level of like, are you still in there and you've lost it? But I think I see it both ways with Bethany. It's like, if you have fuck you money and you want to prove a point, why not, right? Why not do this for the better of mankind? And then it's like, who that has money, doesn't matter how rich you are, smart business people don't go and waste their money, right? Like people, I mean, if you look at it, corporations are afraid of being sued. Rich people are afraid of being sued, right? So like rich people don't, unless they're really wronged to the core, they don't go around suing people, right? So it's strange to me. And the people she's suing, I mean, TikTok, but like all the other people have like no money. So it's just like, I don't know, like, what are you doing? And look, if it's all for the right reasons, make a statement, change the law. I'm all here for it. And if it's just like you say you don't want to be back on Ronnie, but you really want to be back on TV and you can't handle being out of the spotlight, I mean, and this is your new way of then it's like, find a better way.
Maybe there's a little bit of an attention-seeking thing that she just can't let go, because even it had been commented on a lot how her podcast started off being where she was interviewing, CEOs and moguls and stuff like that, and it was about like how to become a mogul like her from Skinny Girl. And then now it's just like, I don't know what she just throws up anything, and it's usually about housewives, great for commentary, and she's always been our commentary queen for sure, but like directionally, where's she going? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Right now, the way content is going, you don't really have a little protection when it comes to that. I mean, I think back in the Napster days, even though people hated on what's his name from what was the band Metallica, Lars, he did have a point. He had a point that sort of made sense. By doing this streaming and just pirating it or whatever, it doesn't do good for the musician. And look where the record industry went. So she has a point too. I'm just a little, I can't find it.
That's the thing. I'm like, I'm not knocking her. Like, there is a point. It's just like, it's because then she throws in like, attack on the Kardashians and this and that. And it's just like, I don't know. I still think it's making her prime, which I don't think this is how you get it. But like, look, a talk show is not right for Bethany, but like a Larry King like type, like, I'm just going to go on and be myself and just be really unfiltered, kind of like a Howard Stern shock jock, but not Howard Stern. Let's not compare anyone to the god Howard Stern, but I think there is a place for Bethany, but it can't be like a Drew Barrymore, Ross Matthews talk show where it's all flowers and rainbows, but I don't know. She's got a lot to say about a lot of things. Yeah. And why? Like,
she should like get that big contract with like a Sirius XM, an interview series. It comes out once every week. She goes and creates a nutty interview or whatever, but they edit what they need to. It's packaged really beautifully. The lighting's great, hair and makeup's great, and then it's just so good because her interview style is, like you say, so Howard Stern-ish, or like polarizing rather. And I think that would be great. That would actually be the best vehicle. But yeah, the talk show, I mean, we're having a hard time watching Sherry Shepherd because the talk show just feels so funny now. It feels very unreal in a lot of cases. But I wish her the best, and she'll be interesting. But yeah, it's like 1 minute it's anti-Kardashians, and then the next it's anti-TikTok. So hard to keep up.
Yeah, and like, you know, like we talk, like I talk on my podcast, you know, twice a week when I'm not interviewing, but I mean, I'm making money from that. So to me, it's like Bethany, I mean, apparently doesn't do anything unless there's like a business. Like, what's the end goal here? Because it can't just be like, I mean, is it like that's where it is? Like, if there's some master plan, like everyone thinks with the makeup, and I would agree, she has a master plan with this makeup and she's going to launch Skinny Girl makeup. And like, if Bethany has some plan in there, I'm all for it. If this is just like, girl, you're bored and you want to share this with 1 million, 2 million, 3 million people that follow you, I'm the exact opposite. I'd like to never go on, like where we opened up. I'd like to never be on social media. I have no interest. So,
well, let me join you and be so clear with you about that. If I didn't have this damn, podcast, which my goals are podcast, then to TV, then to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But if it isn't involved, I don't even, when I watch television or have a commentary, I don't even take it to Twitter. Cause I'm like, if there is no way that it's not circling back, and I guess Twitter numbers are helpful, but if there's no way where it's not circling back, where you go to my show or you add to my Patreon account, by the way, patreon.com/randomlyRJ Jr. If there's no connection there, I don't give a care what you think of what I think. Now, if you come to my show, you watch my YouTube, you go to my podcast, that is very much a different game. And you're right, we're not really seeing that with her. We're just seeing.
I say this all the time, word for word. If this were not my job, you would literally text me or call the authorities because you would think that I was either kidnapped or passed away. I'm not kidding you. You would never see me on social media. I don't understand if you are not monetizing it or it's not tied to your job. I don't understand it. And same thing. I post all day on, this episode and that episode, and here are clips. Hey, from an episode from 3 months ago that you might have missed, and here's YouTube. And that's great. It's all, the people that are following me, it's all about the show. And yeah, I'll DM people back and I'm nice, but like, I don't need to share my thoughts on anything. I don't know. I think that means we're self-actualized people that are not thirsty for clout.
I just like a break. Here's my reason, and we'll end the show. I just like a break. I feel like it's funny when I talk to somebody, and my podcast has been going for a little while, but it ain't really booming. And that's okay. Even though I've worked in radio for years, even though I've had television appearances and stuff, this is just a different time. But anytime I talk to somebody younger, they're always like, oh, well, you got to post more and tweet more and Instagram more and TikTok more and do a little shimmy on TikTok, like do a little Beyonce challenge. It's so much that I'm like, I love my work, and here's what I can do. I could give you 6 episodes a day, an hour each. What I have a hard time doing is now taking that to social media and saying, hey, come listen to my show, which I know it's valuable, but I want to be in a place where we could just create really great work, and we could tweet our work, but not so much where it makes us cringy, how else do we have self-love if we don't step away from it a little bit? So that's something I want to kind of work on. I want to be the epitome of somebody who succeeded, because just because I'm not succeeding right now, David, baby, I'm gonna succeed. Listen. And I want to be somebody who succeeded but didn't get caught up in being so connected to the damn phone. That's a mission for me. It is a mission. That's why I said when I was opening up the episode, I was saying, I love that you went to Sag Harbor in the summer. I thought you had a little more relaxing time, but I love that you prioritized yourself. The podcast and success is always going to be there, and that goes for everybody. So
I agree. And I'm not even so sure. Look, I think like you have to promote on the back end, but I never get into like, oh, you post at this time. And
my goodness.
I'm like, I don't even believe in all of that. I really don't. I think if you're on the different platforms and something is out there, I don't believe I don't. I just think it has its moment. I do.
One of the critiques I get from my younger friends who are doing successful in this industry, they'll say, oh, Ronnie, what you do wrong is you always post 4 clips at a time. And I'm like, they're like, you should spread that out. And I know I'm supposed to, but I'm like, I don't want to be in my phone. Like, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to chunk them all out. And then after that, chunk them out. Is that a word? I'm going to bank them, in the Instagram. or TikTok, but I don't want to be like, now I have to resort back to my phone. I want to talk to my real friends. I've lived in New York City. I'm in Los Angeles now. I want to go live life too. And I think you could do both. And I think maybe this is where we're all headed, because the fatigue, you talk about fatigue of Housewives, the fatigue of everybody with their damn brand and have to sell their brand 24 hours a day. I don't think it's going to last too long, David. I don't see it going too much further. Something's got to crack.
I would agree with you. I mean, I think Housewives is cracking. I'm not sure. I mean, that's not going to be around in 10 years. I mean,
Yeah.
it's one.
You know who's going to be around in 10 years, though?
Who?
Who's absolutely going to be around in 10 years? The Queen, Larsa. Yes.
That's fine. That's fine.
I love her so much. All right, David, do you have any last thoughts? It is Behind the Velvet Rope. I mean, you put out so much content. I love the stuff that you do with Kim D on the weekends, which is a Patreon thing, I believe. And also with Sarah. What is the girl's name? Sarah
Fraser. So it's 3 days
so
of interviews with celebrities, mostly reality people. Yep. Then the other 3 days is Sarah and Kim D, and it's just kind of gossip. And Kim D Patreon Saturdays is everyone's favorite day of the week because Kim just doesn't care. And she makes it her life's mission to investigate these things. She gets pissed off at something, and then she comes back with real facts, and people can't get enough.
Yeah. Well, I thank you for your time. You have enough shows. I'm glad you gave an hour and 20 minutes. I'm very appreciative, David. Go off and have a great rest of your weekend, and we'll talk again.
You too. Keep me posted when this is coming out, and I will share it everywhere.
Absolutely. Always fun. I'm going to call this, I have David on every quarter, because this is the second time we did it. But I don't like bug you every month. But every quarter, let's just get together and do a powwow. Yeah.
I'm good with this. I have fun every time I'm here.
Thanks, David. I'll talk to you later. Team
All right,
Team Larsa. Yeah.